Welcome to a brand new episode of DC and RC. I'm Daniel Cormier. That's my man. He got that draft week smell on him right now, Ryan Clark. He was all over ESPN for the draft last week doing this thing. Coming up on this show, guys, we got to go back to Vegas because the draft wasn't the only thing happening. Rob Font versus Marlon Vera absolutely delivered. Then we're going to look forward to UFC 274. They got a bit of a fight going down in Arizona. And we're joined by Kayla Harrison as she gets ready to headline PFL 3 this weekend also. But Ryan, before we do any of that, look, man.
What's up, bro?
You were out there looking fresh. You had the purple suit on.
Yeah, you saw me?
But Ryan, what's up with the umbrella, my guy? I wanted to get an umbrella. But then my mom always told me, don't open an umbrella inside.
Can't do that.
That's bad luck.
That's
bad luck. But dude, who is the person that has to hold your umbrella and why? Do you like the sweat? You don't like the sweat?
Well, first off, here's the first thing. No one holds my umbrella. I don't need a Farnsworth Bentley. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not Diddy, right? I'm not Fat Joe when I think I'm not Big Pun when he had somebody holding the umbrella for it. I hold my own umbrella, but it was hot, bro. And that day I had on the orange suit. The orange suit. If you sweat in that, you might be able to see it. So here I am trying to be professional. There was an umbrella on the set, so I used it. And it's not the first time I used the umbrella.
Oh,
I remember back in Washington, I had an umbrella for some interviews. Listen, DC, we have that good melanin, and I know they say black don't crack, right? But I ain't trying to risk it, bro. So why do I need unnecessary sun rays? So I didn't want all that vitamin D. Man. I did the right thing.
It makes you look like a diva. It really does make you look. It makes you look like a bit of a diva, but it's okay though. I'm down. We also were supposed to have dinner last week, and you stood me up, so I'm just gonna leave it like that. So RC, look, but we got to move forward. We can't make this all about you. We cannot make this all about you and your bad, the way you nurture friendships. Your bad nurturing of friendships will not be the focus of this show today. So we got to start by going back. First off, tremendous job on the draft. But
thank you, brother.
Right up the street, we had a fight night. Yeah, we had some real animals on display, right? We had people, we had Andrei Arlovsky, once again, just showing that time doesn't matter. But then Marlon Chito Vera, once again, comes out in the biggest spot of his career, and he does what he did to Rob Font. Bro, Chito Vera is not only the coolest human being walking the face of God Green's earth, but this dude can absolutely fight.
He can. And listen, there's the other part too, though. I always wonder, and I'm not a fighter, DC. Maybe you can help me. What happens to a mindset when a guy misses weight? And even if his opponent, if you're the guy that misses weight, do you feel more pressure to come out and show that you still can win, that you still can put the pressure on your opponent? Now you can finish him because maybe you are a little heavier or you didn't have to really endure the weight cut the same. Or if you're on the other side, are you walking into the octagon thinking, okay, like this dude has an edge on me? And there were a lot of moments, especially early, where Rob Font was battering Vera, was putting him in some tough spots, and he kept rebounding and then kind of end up dominating throughout the 5-round bout. When you think about guys missing weight, DC, does that play any effect on the actual fight?
You know what's crazy is, RC, the universe finally is like setting things straight. Because for a long time, the guy that missed weight was just dominating. But this year, something like 1 in 6 guys that have missed weight. So the athletes that aren't disciplined aren't really seeing the benefit before. Sure, you missed weight. You weren't eligible for bonuses. You didn't get the extra money, but you never really depleted yourself. Because when you look at Rob Font and he misses weight by 2.5 pounds, I will tell you from experience.
That's not even close.
Bro, that's not close. And that's the hardest pounds. Those last 2 pounds, they barely move. So when I went to Boston to fight Volkan, I got down to 209 pretty easily. But those last 4 pounds took 4 hours to get off. Right. So it's like you're going through some struggles to get that weight off, and Rob Font didn't have to do that. So to see the guys recently not find that success has been good. But here's the thing that's even more important is when a guy's at his best, they usually make weight on the scale. So it speaks
I
to
got
maybe
you.
not being prepared for what Chito did going down the stretch. But that's what the story of this fight really is. It's Marlon Vera because
Yep.
everybody loves him, bro. Anybody that comes in contact with him, anybody that talks to him, anybody that spends any time with Chito, they fall in love with the guy. And we have now seen him start to deliver with his performances and show that he is one of the best bantamweights in the world. And if you're going to be a bantamweight contender right now, with how good this weight class is, with Aljo as the champ, you have got to truly start to separate yourself. And we're finally starting to see that from Chito Vera.
So now with Chito Vera winning this fight and winning it in the fashion that he has and showing that he still is an elite contender, what do you want to see next from him, DC? Does he get the Aldo rematch, or do you want to see him get an opportunity with Petr Yan and maybe setting him up for the Aljo for the Aljo Dillashaw winner? Because we've seen Jose in there with Petr Yan, and we saw the way that went. It actually ended up, he was almost dominated toward the end of that fight, and it was gracefully stopped. And so what would you think would be next for Chito Vera?
I got to be honest with you, man. I never thought of that. I never thought about him versus Petr. All I've thought about is Corey Sandhagen. That's the guy for me. Like, I want to see Sandhagen be in that Sandhagen just lost the interim title fight to Petr. I think that it's a bit of a big jump if you do it for Chito. You know, Chito's he's very tough, he's very well-rounded, but we saw in the Aldo fight that if you do the right things, you can cause him some issues with the wrestling. I think it's Sandhagen, though. I think that's a good natural step. I think that when people have good performances like we saw last weekend, we tend to get excited and we want them to go up further. He doesn't need that. He needs a natural progression up the weight class because he is now starting to make his way into the conversation of a guy that's potentially going to fight for the belt. Because now he just dominated Frankie Edgar, knocked him out in the way that he did in New York. You come out there and you beat Rob Font in the way that he did, when Rob Font just recently was fighting right at the top of the division. You put him in there now with another guy that is a natural step up the rankings, and I think that's Corey Sandhagen with a win there. Now you're into the three, right? Dillashaw, Aljamain Sterling, Petr Yan. I feel like those guys are a bit the cream of the crop, and everybody else is like a step under.
Yeah, and if you think about where Corey Sandhagen is, and we always talk about this, he's a step below the elite, right? He's a step below Petr Yan, a step below Aljamain Sterling, a step below TJ Dillashaw, because we've seen him in the octagon with all of those guys, and we saw excitement, especially from the Petr Yan fight early, right? TJ Dillashaw throughout the entire bout. And then, he's obviously submitted by Aljamain Sterling on the ground. And so I think when you look at him, that would be a nice step for Vera, seeing where he is and saying, okay, if he can beat Sandhagen, which you don't want to call Sandhagen necessarily a gatekeeper, but now you
find yourself there, RC, right? You're kind of not a gatekeeper, but like you're the boundary to the next level. Because as you said, if he's number 4, he's fought 1, 2, 3. Right? He's fought all of those champions before, and he's a step under him. So he is a great stepping stone in to that triangle of those 3 super high level guys.
You know what? It's like Michael Jordan said. If you remember, Michael Jordan said the ceiling is the roof, right? And that's what Corey Sandhagen now. If you don't beat him, then that's the ceiling, right? You now can't get to that next tier. But if you do, you're now standing on top of him, getting an opportunity to fight against, quote unquote, the big 3. But so two people who don't have to get to the ceiling or the roof are fighting in UFC 274. And that's going to be Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje. And, listening to these dudes like pump this fight has gotten me excited. Justin Gaethje talked about the hell Khabib Nurmagomedov had to walk through in order to get him to the ground. And he said Charles Oliveira is going to have to do the exact same thing, DC. But I would contend, and, maybe in my little puny fan football mind, I'm wrong. I watched him walk through hell in the first round against Michael Chandler. I watched him walk through hell in the first round against Dustin Poirier. And it didn't seem to bother Do Bronx. And so when you're looking at Oliveira versus Gaethje, how much excitement do you have waiting on these two men to walk into the octagon?
I'm always excited for a Justin Gaethje fight. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
no question about it. No thoughts to it not being exciting and fun. Now, the new Charles Oliveira, he is a stone cold killer. I mean, dude's a killer. He will literally walk you down like a cyborg. He goes forward. He's face first. He takes whatever you give him to get to the position that can help him dominate. Now, Gaethje's very aware. That's one thing people don't understand about Justin, is for as good of a fighter as he is, he's much more smart than people give him credit for. He knows where to fight and how to fight. I know it seems like he's just in there giving one, taking one, giving one, taking one, until eventually he wears his guys down. But the dude knows how to set traps. He knows how to really make reads on his opponents to make them make mistakes, which ultimately he capitalizes on over and over and over again. Problem is, Do Bronx doesn't really make mistakes anymore. This new Charles Oliveira, the lightweight champion of the world, the guy that has beaten Michael Chandler, the guy that has beaten Dustin Poirier, the guy that has really shown that he is the best in the world, doesn't really leave as many openings as you would think. Because after watching him in DP, it was almost by design, knowing that Dustin believed so much in his power that he would put everything into his shots that he would ultimately get tired and he'd be able to submit him. Crazy.
So, when you think about who Justin Gaethje has become, Justin Gaethje has become that fighter that we walk into the arena or we sit down on ESPN Plus and we think fireworks. Even if we go back to Khabib in the first round, it was fireworks. And Khabib just had a chin of a dude that grew up with a pet bear. That's just what it was. We think back to, Tony Ferguson, obviously Michael Chandler. We've seen those types of things from Justin Gaethje already, but we know, let's go back to Dustin Poirier. Once Do Bronx started to take him down and got his back, the fight was over. Is there going to be any point in this fight where Justice is going to have to lean on what is truly, and people probably forget, a great wrestling background?
Oh, Ryan, but in reverse. Reverse. He doesn't need to use it offensively. He's got to use it defensively to ensure that he doesn't end up on the ground with Charles Oliveira. This is the greatest submission artist of all time. No one does it like Do Bronx does. I mean, from submitting Kevin Lee to submitting Dustin Poirier, he just submits everyone. When he gets you down there, he is so comfortable in this world. So yes, Justin Gaethje has a tremendous wrestling background, but that does not need to be used in order to pursue takedowns against Charles Oliveira. This needs to be used to stay upright, because Do Bronx is dangerous on his back, but he's the most scary fighter in UFC history if he finds a way onto your back. So as good as Aljamain Sterling's backpack is, and all the guys that we have seen do the rear choke submissions, nobody does it like Charles Oliveira. So you have got to make sure that you're upright. And even standing upright, Ryan, it's not like you're holding a massive advantage against this dude, because the dude is so good in the stand-up now. He really has become one of the most well-rounded fighters in the UFC, and his toughness, his cardio, and his mindset has changed so much that it's been hard to beat him. And that's one thing people point to. The days in which Charles Oliveira would quit, and everybody says it, I'm going to push him to make him quit.
Yeah.
It's been so long since we've seen that. I don't know if that guy exists anymore.
Yeah, you know what's crazy about that, DC, and I hate bringing up Amanda Nunes losing, because you're going to be I told you all the whole time, RC, you showed a very elementary understanding of the fight game, blah, 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 blah. But Juliana Pena said the same thing about Amanda Nunes. And I was of the mindset at that point that you can't bring champions who have disproven that narrative about them back to that, right? Because now they have that championship mindset. So are you telling me, when you look at Charles Oliveira now, you don't think that exists anymore, that breaking point, or that point of discouragement that can force him into not being at championship level is still there? Because if it's not there, then how does someone beat him now?
You see, here's the thing, right? Obviously, people can win. And as we saw in the Amanda fight, she was reminded. The difference is Charles has been there in this run. He was hurt bad by Chandler. He was hurt bad by Poirier. He was pushed. We had just never seen Amanda push. During that whole run, Amanda was cruising.
Yeah.
When it got difficult again, Juliana reminded her of how hard fighting could be, and she didn't respond well. But with Oliveira, we have seen him hurt. We have seen him deal with adversity. We have seen him get rocked on multiple occasions, fight his way through the adversity. But if there's anyone that's going to take him to that place, anyone that's going to put those memories in his mind, it's going to be Justin Gaethje. Because Gaethje kicked Khabib hard in round one. He had Khabib hurt with leg kicks in round one. He hit Khabib on a number of instances with his hands. He defended takedowns. He made Khabib work as hard as Khabib has worked around. Judges scored the round for Justin Gaethje. We don't see Khabib Nurmagomedov lose rounds. Justin won round one on 2 judges' scorecards, even though I disagree. I didn't think he won the round, but they thought he did. He will remind Charles how hard this sport can be. So we will see if Charles still can get through it as we've seen him do recently. Now it's time for one round with Justin Gaethje, the human highlight, your favorite fighter's favorite fighter. My man, you've been in Arizona for a couple of days. You're back home. How are you dealing with the acclimation and getting ready for the biggest fight of your entire career?
Shit, this has been a way of life for a long time, DC. I just got to stay positive. You know, I got the coaches and the people surrounding me that help me stay positive. But ultimately, I know for a fact there is not one more thing I could have done to be prepared for this moment in time, and I draw a lot of confidence from that.
Is there anyone in particular that you brought into camp to try and help you prepare for Charles Oliveira? Because he does present a lot of different challenges that you haven't really seen, because, you know, you fought the best of the best, obviously. But some guys specialize in one area. When it comes to Oliveira, he is much more than just a submission specialist.
Yeah. I mean, I have a jiu-jitsu coach. I got Stolt Kamaru's guy, George Santiago. He's going to be in my corner. Patrick Mix, Alexander Almeida, you know, a couple great submission grapplers. I've had put me in a bunch of submissions, and ultimately it's just to gain a little bit of confidence in those situations. You know, I'm not out here looking to sub people, but I've worked on defense for a long time, and, you know, really just touching up on those things, putting myself in those situations more so has been, you know, been able to give me some confidence when it comes to that. At the end of the day, he ain't going to grab me. He ain't going to be able to grab me. He better say a lot of prayers that he's going to be able to grab me.
Because has that been the focus, though, JG? Has that been the focus, like staying upright, maintaining space and distance? Because earlier in the show, Ryan and I spoke about it, and he asked me in particular, how much will Justin have to rely on his high-level wrestling to allow for him to win this fight? And I told him it's wrestling in reverse. It's to stay standing because you feel like you have the advantage on the feet.
Hey, half of wrestling is not getting taken down.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where I was always the best. I was never a great offensive wrestler. I was extremely hard to score on, and you couldn't hold me down. And, you know, from day one, that's what I prided myself on. You know, I wasn't a great offensive wrestler. I had great takedowns, and I could bully people into, you know, on their back. But ultimately, I was a great defensive wrestler. And at the highest levels, that's what you have to be. If you watch the Michael Chandler fight, you watch the Tony Ferguson fight, those guys would have loved to get it to the ground. And they, you know, they just were not able. In the history of my fights, I think I've been taken down 2 times, 2 or 3 times. So, yeah, that is who I am, and that is what I do. And, yeah, that's the plan.
You know, Justin, when you look at Charles Oliveira, right, you are a guy that is usually going forward. Charles doesn't want to take a step back either. I just did a preview of the fight this weekend. And ultimately, it's a matter of who's going to go backwards first. Same situation with Chandler back in November. You guys are saying, I'm going to the center. I'm not going backwards. But what we have seen from Oliveira recently is that this guy is like a cyborg. He walks you down. He's willing to take one to give one to ultimately get to his positions, to get to his areas where he is the best at. How do you approach him knowing that you have to maintain distance when that is not normally how you approach a fight?
Yeah, I mean, I'm counting on him having that game plan, walking forward, trying to walk through the fire. He will not be able to do that. There's no possible way. And every single fight that you watch, one of the first thing that is being jockeyed for, trying to get leverage on, is distance and space. Someone will win that battle, and it often changes hands on who's winning, but ultimately someone does win that battle, and then that's the fight that we have to fight. So, yeah, I'm not sure what fight we're fighting yet. I don't believe he's going to move forward, but I'm happy to move backwards. I don't care what anybody says about moving backwards. I'm going to be elusive, and I'm going to punch a hole in his face. He can't stop me from landing my shots. I'm the most accurate striker in the UFC, and I pride myself in that.
You know, people talk about Charles Oliveira and the guy that fought against Paul Felder constantly. They're always talking about how they're going to make him quit. Now, when you relate it to Amanda Nunes during her run was very dominant, Justin. She wasn't hurt over the course of that run. Ronda barely touched her. She beat up on Miesha Tate. She beat up on Chris Cyborg. But ultimately, when Juliana Pena showed her and reminded her of what it was like to be the nail for once, she struggled. With Charles Oliveira, we have seen him be the nail since he became the champ or went on this run. What can you do differently from Dustin Poirier, who hurt him bad? What can you do differently from Michael Chandler, who hurt him bad, to remind him that, dude, you are a guy that used to look for the exit? How can you do that? How can you do something that these guys were not able to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think those two fights are completely different instances. I think, and this is just because I have to have a criticism because this is the question you're asking me. I think Chandler, in his mind, whooped his ass in the first round and then completely forgot the danger that was presented at all times in this sport. I believe he became overconfident in that second round, and essentially that's why that left hand was so effective. He wasn't prepared for the danger that he was in anymore after that first round. And I believe Poirier's, after we heard him in the first round, really dumped everything and really tried to get him out of the first round. So I'm going to be patient. When I hurt him, I'm going to be patient. When I don't hurt him, I'm going to be patient. The most accurate striker in the UFC, even though those numbers are absolute bullshit, but my shots land, and they land consistently and effectively, and that's the name of the game.
When I was watching you in Chandler, I think a lot of people miss some of the little things that you do in those interactions. They say, well, Justin Gaethje has hard leg kicks. They don't understand the setups to the leg kicks. They don't understand the angles that you create. They don't understand the little traps that you set within your interactions with your opponents that allow for you to take advantage and land the highest strike percentage in UFC history. What is it that you are doing, you and Trevor, to build these game plans that have allowed for you to not only make a hell of a debut in the UFC, but ultimately just stay at the top of the division the entire time that you have been in the octagon, the entire time that you have been in the organization?
Yeah, it's all timing. It's all timing, and my reactions from A to B are faster than anybody. That's a skill that I've honed since I was a little kid, on accident, in different ways. But the ability to fire and not think in chaos is something that I'm great at, and that's what we do. You have to be able.
How did you develop that? Because you and I have spoken about this on a number of occasions where your thought process in regards to a fight is actually scary. It honestly reminds me, I don't know if you know the whole Stone Cold Steve Austin thing, how he got his name and built the character. He had saw a mob murderer called the Iceman. I feel like your mentality in regards to combat is very resembling of that guy in his approach to what he was doing. How'd you develop that? Because we've spent a lot of time together off camera, and you're a pretty cool dude, normal, laid back. But in those situations, it's kind of scary the way that you think about a fight.
Ultimately, since I was a child, my parents instilled the best thing a parent can instill, and that is their belief in their faith. My belief in my faith has taken me so far, and my comfort knowing that if I die, I get to go home brings me comfort. And this is the life that I chose. This is the life that I love. That chaos, I've never been so comfortable. Not right now. I'm not as comfortable right now as I will be in the cage, and I don't know why. But as far as honing skills, like when I was a kid, every time I was in the back seat, a shadow was cast across the road. I had to blink whenever it was in between the tires. Like the ability to fire without processing, I think is what, if some stupid shit like that, I think is what has instilled this intuition that allows me to be faster from point A to point B.
Justin, you are truly a special talent, special human being, and you are now on the verge of what I believe is the biggest fight of your entire career. Thank you for taking some time to speak with me. I will see you down in Arizona, and I will see you next time on the golf course when you will be receiving a whipping once again. Because I got to be honest, man, having money is one thing. Having Justin Gaethje money is a completely different thing.
You're gonna play me in a fair game of golf next time. You ain't getting 2 strokes a hole.
Listen. 2 strokes a hole could be a theory it could be something you're making up at this point. I don't know, but I know that I'm gonna whip your ass the next time I see you on that golf course. JG, see you in Arizona, my brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can't wait for Saturday. Charles Oliveira will be the biggest accomplishment on my record, and I cannot wait for it.
That's the great thing about your sport, though, DC. Me and you can sit here and we can talk as much as we want about what we believe is going to happen. Justin Gaethje could say that he's going to take him to hell. You're going to have to walk through hell. But eventually, you know, we're going to see this fight take place, and these men get to prove all of what they are in the greatest place in the world, which is in the middle of the octagon, in a huge arena full of people who want to see them do battle, and I can't wait for it. But another championship fight.
Wait, you going? You going?
Yeah, I'm going. We got to work. Bro, we got to work Saturday morning.
Yeah, we in there. Yeah, we in there. We back. We back in there. I forgot about that. Yeah, we in there. Let's go.
Hey, so another championship fight is Rose Namajunas gets to defend her belt against Carla Esparza. And this is the second time that these two have fought, even though it was 2014, the first opportunity for a title fight. And Rose was submitted in the 3rd round. When you look at how far Rose Namajunas has come, not only from that first fight in 2014, but after beating Johanna, then being slammed on her head and losing her belt, what type of fighter do you expect Rose to be on Saturday when she gets an opportunity to defend this belt for the second time?
You know, when I think about Rose Namajunas back then, she was a kid, like she was a baby. And
she had different hair and everything. She had different hair.
She had hair. Now she doesn't even have hair. But like, she was a baby, bro. And she went on The Ultimate Fighter. She was exciting. She was fun. She was very beautiful. And everybody was just drawn to her immediately. But on the other hand, you had Carla Esparza, who was just a grinder, a wrestler, making her way through the tournament. And everybody's not really paying attention to her, but you got to understand that she had the skill set that was really made for becoming UFC champion. So when they fought, Carla just wrestled her to death, took her down over and over again, elbow, beat her up until eventually she submitted her. Rose Namajunas, 7-8 years later, she doesn't even recognize that fighter from back then. She's better. And we have seen her go through a transformation right in front of our eyes, from young girl to world champion to not the world champion. That was almost happy to not be world champion.
Yeah.
To pursuing and chasing and winning that world championship again and being grateful for the opportunity of being world champion. So we have seen that evolution. So the story of The Ultimate Fighter, where we are enamored by this Rose Namajunas, has played in front of our eyes 2 times, from the Ultimate Fighter to the title to the championship again. But guess what's been happening the entire time again? In the background, Carla Esparza, the wrestler, has been grinding with much less attention on her, making her own improvements, putting together a long win streak to find herself right back in this position against Rose Namajunas. Dude, history at times can repeat itself. And it seems as though right now we're right back where we started. So even though it's 22 opposed to 14 RC, we're right back in 14. But we have 2 much better fighters, much more well-equipped fighters for fighting for a UFC championship because of the journeys that they have been on. All while different, they've really led them right back to the same place.
You know, you mentioned history repeating itself. And when you look at these 2 fighters, is there anything you can gain from that first fight, DC, by going back and watching it, understanding how a fighter attacks you or the way that they approach you? Or do you kind of have to scrap that thing and say, you know what, this is not really who these fighters are, and totally approach the fight in a different way?
It's a different fight. I think too much time has passed, right? Rose Namajunas today knows how to defend takedowns much more effectively than she did back in 2014. And Carla Esparza is a much better striker than she was back in 2014, 2015. I think one of the biggest moments for me that pointed to Carla in her evolution was when she lost her title to Joanna Jędrzejczyk, when she couldn't get a takedown and had no ability to stand and strike. Then you fast forward, and in the fights against Marina Rodriguez and everyone else that she has fought to get herself to this position right now, you see a much improved Carla Esparza. You see a fighter that understands if she cannot secure that takedown, she has the ability to stand. And look, Colin Oyama, her striking coach, is a fantastic coach in Southern California. And I believe for all the work that he's done, for all the great fighters that he has trained, he trained Rampage, he trained all those guys back in the day. His work with Carla to improve her to the level that she has, just a comfort level that she carries in the striking, should be some of his proudest work. And I believe that when you wait as long as Carla has had to wait, she is very understanding of the opportunity, because they may not come again.
Yeah.
They may not come again. So you have to strike while the iron is hot. Whole new fight, whole new fighters. They're barely recognizable from the 2 that we saw way back on the Ultimate Fighter finale.
We've seen Rose Namajunas go through so many different changes, and we've seen her change as like I said, as a person. And now this champion is much different in who she is in the octagon as a fighter, but who she is as just being Rose, you know, knowing that I'm the best, right? Knowing that I can go out here and do that. And she's saying that, you know, those type of things pre-fight. When you look at this weight class, right? Rose Namajunas being, 2-time champ. What does a win in this fight do for her legacy as a champion and just as a fighter as a whole?
You know, the sport's young, so we tend to get excited, Ryan, and we have seen this time and time again, from King was the greatest heavyweight of all time to Usman now may pass George St. Pierre, and the greatest middleweight, Izzy's right behind Anderson, when in reality it's not, right? It's not. Like, for as much of a resume as Rose is building as the champ, she's a ways off, because the greatest champion in his division history is Joanna Jędrzejczyk. It doesn't just point to the matchups because of all the defenses. The way that she truly put that weight class on the map is why we view her in the way that we do. But does Rose step closer to being considered, to being in the conversation as the greatest strawweight we've ever seen? Absolutely. Yeah. I believe that this fight does more for Rose personally than it does for her legacy, because you go and get that one back from when you were a kid, from when you got embarrassed after coming off the show, riding that wave of momentum. Her true first taste of stardom, of recognition, of visibility, she got really stumped bad by Carla Esparza. So I think personally for Rose Namajunas, personally for Rose and her entire team, this is what the win is for them, opposed to what does it mean to the legacy of Rose Namajunas because it's still building. And if she's going to be considered the greatest fight in the division history, she's got a little work to do.
Right. And so I think the one thing I always think about is the demons, right? The demons of the past and the things that you aren't necessarily able to accomplish, and then understanding how to use those things as fuel to be better as you go forward. And I think Rose has done that in every way, whether it was losing the belt and having to fight Jessica Andrade again, whether it was having to defend against Zhang Weili and actually being taken into the deep waters of the second fight and seeing her use her takedown, seeing her use her ground game and show kind of that evolution of, I can win fights either way. It doesn't have to be the early head kick that surprises everyone. I thought that was huge. And now we look at another fight that, even though it's not for a belt, DC, this could be the most explosive fight of 274. Now, I know Justin Gaethje is pumping it and saying, we got to walk through hell. But we've watched Tony Ferguson and Michael Chandler fight in hell with gasoline tights on and not try to run and get out. Yeah. And when we think about this fight, this is going to be one of those fights, DC, like honestly, that I could see being very, being explosive, being a good fight, being a little more technical, but still being a good fight, and people booing because these two dudes do is step into the octagon, stand in the middle, not back up, not put their hands up, and just throw. When we listen to MC in our favorite Oreo last week, right? DCRC and MC, when you listen to him last week, talk about, I need to win. How do you see this fight playing out?
And I think that's where you said, what if people boo it a little bit? Because I think Chandler has to be smart. Yeah. What he just told us last week tells us that the approach will be a little different from what we have seen in his UFC career to this point. But do we really believe him, RC?
Yeah,
he's a friend of the show. Do we really believe that Mike's going to be able to fight the smart fight? Do we really believe that Mike's going to be able to stay patient in there, not take many chances? I don't. I think Chandler's going to go after him in the way that he's done every single fighter that he has fought inside the octagon to this point. I think it's going to be explosive because Tony Ferguson will not allow you to fight in any other way because he's going to be in front of you dancing. He's got some different types of movement. He's
so awkward.
He's awkward. And a lot of times the awkwardness will get you pissed off. You're like, I want to fight this dude. And that's how Tony Ferguson, it's almost like he walks you into traps, man. The dude tells you stuff like, I'll get you with a low single. You're like, man, you're not going to shoot a low single in a mixed martial arts fight. He's like, it's different. This one's fun. And honestly, I feel like this one is the right step for Chandler because unless Tony Ferguson has made some real changes to his approach, this seems like a winnable fight for Michael Chandler. I'm not saying he'll beat Tony Ferguson. I'm saying when we looked at the two matchups he had on paper prior, it seemed as though he was a clear dog. This one, he's the favorite. It seems like the right matchup for him at this point in his career.
I think the thing about Tony is Tony still has enough allure from that great run he went on where people won't think he's over with, where people will think that Tony Ferguson still stands a chance. They won't think about maybe the Charles Oliveira fight where, he refuses to tap, or Daniil Berriush, where he was truly dominated on the ground in that fight the entire time. I think the good thing is too, those aren't really places we've seen, at least recently, Michael Chandler take the fight. We know that he's an amazing wrestler, but he hasn't really taken the fight there. So he's going to give Tony that opportunity to stand and throw. Do you think that somewhere deep down, though, DC, somewhere stuck inside that awkward body with that weird fade, that there's a little old Tony left? That Tony got something that he could bring out. Can we see some of that this Saturday? And can that be brought out by a guy like Michael Chandler, who may give Tony that opportunity to display fireworks?
I think so. I think it's still in there a little bit. And you know how I know? Because he doesn't quit. Old great champions that quit you can see that fire that drives him is gone. Older fighters that aren't willing to die on their shield, you could see that thing that made him so special is gone. Tony Ferguson never quits. So in the Beneil Dariush fight, where he's seeing very little success, in the Oliveira fight, where got his arm broken, in the Gaethje fight, where Gaethje just battered him all across the octagon, he never quit. He kept trying. He kept trying to fight, kept trying to stay in there. And because of that, that tells me that fire within, it's still burning. It may be dim. It may not be a full-on flame as it was when he was on a 12-fight win streak, but it's still in there. So he's got to tap back into that thing that made him so special over the course of that run that he was on. I think it's there. And I think that if Michael Chandler isn't careful, Tony Ferguson will do things and you'll go squint a little bit.
Right.
You squint a little bit.
Yeah,
you'll see the guy, right? You'll see that guy that submitted Kevin Lee. You'll see the guy that ripped Josh Thompson's face apart with the elbows. You'll see the guy that was truly considered the boogeyman in the lightweight division on Saturday night. It's going to be fun, man. This fight card is insane.
Yes,
it's going to be a great fight down in Arizona.
You know, the crazy thing about it is I listened to you kind of recap some of the things we've seen from Tony Ferguson or we saw on that run. And what it made me think about too is versatility. We do watch him, kind of be awkward, and we do believe that he's exciting, and we've seen those things. But Tony Ferguson can beat you in a multitude of ways. And if a guy like Michael Chandler does give him the opening and does give him the opportunity to show us some old Tony, this could be one of the more exciting and explosive fights of the night. And I think that's what we're expecting. But speaking of exciting and explosive, we got somebody coming up on this show for one round that I think people need to get to know even more because of the type of fighter she is, the type of star she is, and the way she's learning to sell herself a little bit. So we got one round with PFL champion Kayla Harrison coming at you now.
All right, guys, it's time for one of our favorite segments of the show. Every week, we talk to these spectacular guests. This week, we have two-time U.S. Olympic gold medalist, PFL champion, Mrs. Everything, Kayla Harrison, as she gets ready to headline PFL 3, third fight of the season this weekend against Marina Moke Nakina. Marina Moke Nakina.
There you go,
there
DC.
we go. Y'all got it?
There you go, DC.
I got it, right? But reality is, Kayla, does it really matter who you fight?
No, it's like line them up, I'll knock them down, That's it.
Before we get into your fight, I want to ask you, last weekend, there was a massive female boxing fight in Madison Square Garden that completely took over the fight world.
Yeah.
Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano last week, Madison Square, place was going crazy. A week later, you're headlining. How empowering is it for a female to see that on one weekend and find herself at the top of the marquee the following week, and how far female fight sports have come?
Yeah, I mean, you love to see it. The sooner as women we realize that we're all in this together, and what we're doing is we're trying to make the next generation not have to work quite so hard in a sense, the better off we're going to be. You love to see it. You look at how far we've come in such a short time. Remember when Dana said there would never be women in the UFC, and then Ronda shattered that ceiling? Like, that wasn't that long ago. Like, Ronda's
It really wasn't.
It's like, and now they're headlining Madison Square Garden, and I'm the main main event. And, we've come a long way in a short period of time, and it's just going to keep growing. Women are the sport, it's such a unique sport in the sense that it hasn't been around that long, but women haven't been around that long. So the rate of growth is exponential. And I mean, I already have girls at the gym who are 18-year-old girls who just do MMA, and they're coming to kill me, and I'm like, holy like, I better get in, get off, and get out.
Yeah. Well, Kayla, that's interesting that you mentioned that, because you think back to the inception of MMA. Some people called it human cockfighting. And then we watch it progress, at least as far as the men progressed into these athletic dynamos who understood that if I can understand these skills and techniques, then I can take over this sport. It's kind of going to start happening with women. You know, you mentioned already 18-year-old girls that are only focusing on MMA, but that's because of the Ronda Rouseys, the Cyborgs, the Amanda Nunes's, and now you. When you look at the evolution of the sport, how excited are you to be one of the faces that headlines that for women?
I mean, it's an honor, you know, it's something that I think realistically, like, to be quite frank with you, I don't really do it for that. Like, I don't do it. I don't do this to be famous. I don't do this to like, that's, I've realized over the course of my MMA career for sure, like, I really don't do it for that. But to have a positive side of that, where I mostly mean the negative side of it, right? Like when you're famous or like in order to sell a fight, like nowadays it's got this Conor McGregor effect and you have to talk trash and you have to hate the person and you have to like blow it up larger than life. The good news about being a positive, about being, I guess, a star of the sport is the positive impact where you do get to show young girls that like, hey, anything is possible. Like I was 16 years old with $5 in my bank account and now I'm 31 and I've got, you know, millions of dollars in the bank.
That's what I was listening for, the millions. I was listening for the millions.
Yeah, she got zeros on zeros on zeros.
I don't do it for that either, but I think that that's the beauty about my life. Like I do what I love every day and life blesses me because of that. If I want money, you know, I do what I love and I find a way to make my passion my purpose, and my life has, you know, flourished abundantly, like financially, spiritually, emotionally. Like my life is beautiful because of that.
Kayla, now getting to the fight this weekend, you know, when we talk about Marina, I know you said the opponent doesn't matter, but every time you step foot into that octagon, there is dangers that comes with the competition. So what can you point to specifically that, even though it may not be a major threat, is something that you have to really be on guard for when you step into the cages this weekend?
Yeah, I want to reiterate that. Of course, I'm the best in the world. You know, that's it. I'm the best in the world, and time will tell that. I will prove myself right. But everyone's tough until you beat them. You know, it doesn't matter who it is that you step across the cage from. At the end of the day, they're trying to beat you. You're trying to beat them. Everyone's tough until you beat them. You can't overlook anyone. So one of the reasons I love the season format and getting to fight so often and having PFL do such a good job of bringing in new talent and having the Challenger series and looking for scouting for their own stars and things like that is I'm fighting someone new, and Marina is a new challenge. You know, she's a Sambo world champion. She does a lot of leg locks. She does a lot of spinning back fists. You know, leg locks and spinning back fists are not something that I've really thought about before in my career. So now, you know, I've had to focus on that. I'm going with friggin' Mateusz Gamrot, you know, trying to leg lock me. Like that's, I'm getting better. You know, she's forcing, I appreciate an opponent like Marina because she forces me to fix my holes and get better, you know?
Yeah, now, you know, that was going to be.
Jim did have a good line about Sambo, though. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, tell me.
Please. Are you nervous? Okay. He said,
"You're gonna, hey, just who said that?
Big Jim.
Okay, well, you just better be careful. Tell Big Jim he's about to make a whole bunch of Dagestani enemies. So come on, tell me.
We were watching film, and I was like, "Oh yeah, Big Jim. She's a Sambo. You know, he's 75 from Boston. He's like your quintessential masshole." And he was Ronda's judo coach, my judo coach. He's like one of the greatest coaches of all time. Anyways, we're watching the film, and he's like sitting there, and I'm like, "Oh, Big Jim, she's a Sambo world champion." Da 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 da. He's like, "Sambo, Sambo, Sambo's for people who couldn't make it in judo."
Hey, you know what though? I think you got to have that level of confidence in what you do. I'm not mad at Big Jim at all. You just got to make him right though. Like that's the only thing. You got to make
that.
Yeah, you just got to make it
too hard. Don't worry about that.
And so you know, you look at you mentioned your opponents, right? And having Marina come in and make you better. You seem to dominate in a fashion that we haven't seen since early Ronda, and probably even more impressive. When you look at what you want to do in the future, do you see the rest of your career at PFL? Do you see other things in store for you? What would you like to be your next step after continuing to prove you're the best in the world?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be a free agent ever again. I'll tell you that much.
That was crazy. It was
Listen,
crazy. It was
I was a free agent
crazy.
in football. It sucks.
No, I
Kayla,
can't imagine. Like, I can't imagine football. That must have been. There was a
It was
point
crazy
where
to watch you go through that. It was crazy to watch you go through that, and all the polls that you were having to deal with. And ultimately re-signing with the PFL.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no, it's okay. I just got to the point where it was like, obviously at first it's fun, you know, you're like the belle of the ball, everyone's taking you out to dinner, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're excited, you think you're going here, then you think you're going there. And you know, it was exciting at first, but it got to the point where I was just like, I don't care if I fight in a bar at this point. Like, let's just get me a fight booked.
Right.
You know? And I think the highs and lows of it, you know, to be quite frank, and I'm very happy with my contract. I'm very happy I'm back with the PFL. We've come to a lot of, I think we're going to do great things, even better things than we've already done. But you're right. I do want to test myself. You know, I do want to test myself against the best. I think I'm ready. You know, I think I've been ready. My coaches have been sort of keeping me patient, keeping me humble, keeping me grounded, but I feel like I'm ready. And there was a point during free agency where I accepted a contract and I thought I was going to fight Chris Cyborg on April 22nd in Hawaii. So, you know, I still want to test myself against the best, to answer your question. I'm not shying away from anyone. I'm not afraid to fight anyone. I'll step in the cage with King Kong. I really don't care.
Love that.
Because it's not about them. You know, at the end of the day, this is my personal journey. And this is my goal for myself, to see how far I can push myself, to see how high I can climb, to see how many mountains I can conquer. And that's not to say that I will get to where I want to go. I don't know if I'm ever going to get to fight Cyborg. I don't know if I'm ever going to get to fight Amanda, but I want to try to fight the best while they're the best, you know?
Yes.
I want to climb those mountains.
Kayla,
and I think the PFL is gonna help me. You know, I think the PFL wants to. They want to grow just as much as I want to grow, and they want to put on exciting fights for the fans just as much as I do.
The best way to do that also is to have a dominant champion that you feel you can roll out against anyone in the world. Now, before we let you go, champ, during your contract renegotiation, Amanda was fighting Juliana Pena. Everybody knew you were a free agent. You're in the stands. You seem more open to fighting her, even though you guys were from the same gym, than most. And then she leaves. And then you hear Amanda left ATT because of the stuff with Kayla Harrison. So could you shed a little light on that situation? Because Amanda's one of Ryan's favorite fighters, as she is most of us favorite fighters. But
my favorite fighters too.
Yeah, she is. But could
DC, why you tried to hate though? Why you tried to hate?
What happened in that situation? Like, were you okay with going and fighting her, even though you were teammates? Like, what happened there, and why'd she go?
You know, I don't know why Amanda left. Those are her personal reasons. I haven't like sat down and had a discussion with her about any of it, but I will tell you that I was helping her train for that fight against Juliana. Things were fine. I'm still friendly. Nina's still at the gym. Things are good. And I will say that, of course, I was open to fighting her. Like, it's no secret. I feel like I've made it no secret that I'm open to fighting her. I'm open to fighting Cyborg. I'm open to fighting you. Like, I don't really. And I think that might just be part of my upbringing, you know, my judo upbringing. Like, we used to go to training camps and train with everybody from Japan and France and China and here and there. And then we'd fight them in a tournament a week later. And then we're training with, like, a month before the Olympics. I tell this story all the time, but a month before the Olympics, I was in France training with the girl that I fought in the finals of the Olympics. Like, it wasn't, it's not, I remember when I first started MMA and I was trying out new gyms, I mentioned to someone like, oh man, maybe I should go where Cyborg trains. And everyone was like, what? You can't do that. And I'm like, why not?
Right.
Like, I'm 0-0. She's the greatest at the time, you know, and that's who I want to be. Why wouldn't I go train with the best? If you want to be the best, if you want to beat the best, you have to train with the best, you know?
Yeah.
So, and that's what happened when I moved to ATT. I did one session with Amanda and I was like, oh, all right, I guess I'm going to Florida, you know? That was it. I packed my stuff up and a month later, you know, I'm a Floridian.
Yeah. Champ, thank you so much for joining us. We always appreciate your time. Have fun out there this weekend. I know you will. And you are truly an inspiration to men and women all around the world, and all the great work that you're doing
Thank
at
you.
the forefront of everything outside of the octagon. I know we didn't get to it, but congrats on all your success, Kayla. Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys
Congratulations.
so
Keep
much.
pushing.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. DC, you know what time it is. Tap in, tap out. Let's get it, my guy. Corporate Jake, what's up?
All right, guys. After a full year away from the octagon, the 39-year-old Donald Cowboy Cerrone returns Saturday night at UFC 274 against Joe Lozon. Cowboy has nothing left to prove inside the octagon. So, RC, tap in or tap out that UFC 274 should be Cerrone's swan song.
I tap in. When you think about the numbers of times that Cowboy Cerrone has not only entertained us, enthralled us, but earned our respect by the type of fighter he is and his willingness to fight at any time against anyone, he doesn't have a thing to prove. And I think sometimes because we've watched someone be so good at their job and they've been so good at their job, you just want to keep seeing them and having the opportunity to watch them do it. And on the other hand, they want to do it until they can't anymore. And I don't want Cowboy Cerrone to get to that point. I think this should be his last one. I hope it's a great one for him. But no matter how it goes, we should have the opportunity to know or to hear him say, this is it for me, so he can get the standing ovation in Arizona that he deserves.
I tap in because taking a year away is a step from the norm for Cowboy. Before he was 3 times a year, 4 times a year, anybody, anytime, anywhere. And you know, he's a cowboy that just floated around the Wild Wild West because that's what the UFC was. But now, when you start to find yourself across the octagon from guys like Nico Price and all the young guys, it's time to maybe think about walking away because you're a high-level prize fighter, top-level prize fighter who has been around the top of the cards for so long. And the successes are different today than they were before. But I'm not one man to tell another man to walk away from the game, especially if they still feel that they can compete. But this one seems teed up the right way because Joe Lozon is a guy from his era, a guy that was fighting at the top during his time. And if he can win this fight, he could be able to go, you know what? I got a guy that I've seen and known for years, a guy that I've experiences with, got him, go out on a win. I think it should be time for Cowboy. Corporate Jake?
All right, guys. One half of the UFC Smash Brothers has a bout for this summer. Darren Till will face Jack Hermanson in July, and the UFC returns to London. So, DC, tap in or tap out that Hermanson is the right opponent for Darren Till's return.
You know, I tap in because this is bad. Because I said something about these two dudes, and people think I don't like. I love Darren Till. I love Hamzat. The reason I say I'm tapping in is because Darren Till lost to Derek Brunson. Mm-hmm. We saw Robert Whittaker get Darren Till. And even though I love Darren Till, hearing him get a fight is what excites me. The name of the opponent, to me, it doesn't really do as much because what does it really matter outside of him going back in the right direction? So because I don't like view him on that short list of contenders right now, it's like, it's about him fighting someone. It doesn't matter who that person is. So I tap in. Jack Hermanson, it could have been freaking another dude from somewhere else. It's good for London. He's going to get the fight at home. People are going to go crazy. So I know why it works. But, and I guess Hermanson is going to test him in the wrestling a little bit. So we'll see if he's made those improvements. So, yeah, I tap in.
Yeah, I tap in because, like, Darren Till has now probably become more famous for his relationship with Khamzat Chimaev, right? Because that's what we're seeing lately. And obviously, the last time we see Hermanson and DCU, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he lost to Strickland, who was kind of Sean Strickland, who was kind of on,
he lost to Strickland,
right? Who's kind of on his rise up. And so I think this is a good fight to get Darren Till back into the fold. Because truthfully, with what his personality is, kind of the fandom that's starting to follow him, it'll be good to get him there in there against some of the contenders after this. He's a guy that could probably build a fight, make it fun, and do some of those things.
Fun. He's very,
Very
fun,
fun.
right? And he's fought for the belt. You know, he fought
Yeah.
Tyron Woodley for the belt back in the day in Dallas. People love him. He's
Yes.
English. You know, you and I spoke about that head start that those guys with the accent have. Dude,
Yep.
he was this rising hot prospect, but he's cooled because he hasn't been able to win. He hasn't been able to make 170. Fighting up at 185, struggling with the size. He is a tweener. Like, he's between 170 and 185. Little too big for 70, little too small for 85. So Hermansson works in that sense. And like Ryan said, you know, his popularity skyrocketed. But that popularity needs to be tied to your successes.
Fighting. Yeah.
To your successes. And he goes and beats Hermansson in England, where the people are going to go crazy. He'll be right back on the track that he needs to be. Corporate Jake.
Speaking of London, the top of the heavyweight division is slowly taking shape. 2 bouts have been rumored involving various contenders: Curtis Blades versus Tom Aspinall in London, and Cyril Gane versus Tai Tuivasa, hopefully in Paris. So RC, tap in or tap out that Gane versus Tuivasa is more enticing than Blades versus Aspinall.
Oh, Gane versus Tuivasa is definitely more exciting or enticing. Tap in. I'm talking about tap in, sign me up. Where's the tickets? I won't
He
even
wants to go
ask
to
Glenn.
Paris.
Yeah, I won't even ask
Yeah.
Glenn for the free joint. Yeah. Yeah, I'd be like, Parlez-vous français? Listen. Hey, I mean, like when you look at, because when you look at that fight, I think it's a great proving ground for Tai Tuivasa, and it's an opportunity for Cyril Gane to show us that he could stand in there with someone who presents some of the things Derek Lewis did, but actually at a higher level right now, because we've watched those two men go toe to toe. I think the thing that won't happen, right, is if we won't see if Cyril Gane has improved the wrestling, which
Yep.
we saw him dominated by Francis Ngannou. But I also think it's a very smart move for the UFC to not make him prove it to us right away, right? Don't put him in there with the guy that's going to attempt takedowns for
That's
3
the problem.
or for 5 rounds.
ARC, that's kind of the problem with the Aspinall fight. Like, we don't know if Aspinall can wrestle, but he's gonna definitely be tested in his wrestling with Curtis Blades. Like,
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
But what if Aspinall gets through this with Curtis Blades? Now you know he's got all the skills. Now you know that this kid can do everything. I still am more enticed by the Gane fight. First off, because I don't think the UFC's ever been to Paris. He's gonna be headlining there. Tai Tuivasa's fun. It's going to be tremendous. But does Cyril Gane take more chances in this fight against Tuivasa? Because you saw in the Francis fight, like, first 3 rounds, sure, he was winning, but he was barely tapping Francis, and Francis couldn't catch up to him. So he's such a great striker and can create so many angles that he frustrates guys. Can Tai get to him? It's fun. It's interesting. But, man, Aspinall having to fight Curtis Blades in London, that's going to be a massive test for that young man to see if he is truly ready for the elite of the division.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait. I tap in on both, Ryan.
Listen, that's not the question. Don't you do that, DC.
Hey.
Don't play. I'm Mr. Nice Guy. I'm Mr. UFC. This is why everybody loves me.
I'm more into the Tuivasa Cyril fight because it's in Paris. Like you said, vivez-vous. I want to put on one of them little black hats. I'm going to grow my little thing right there and let it kind of go forward. I'm going to be in Paris. I'm going to Paris for that. I mean, the city of love, RC. I'm going to the city of love.
You are a lover,
baby.
DC, brother.
Yeah.
You a lover anyway, baby.
Hey,
That's what you do.
They call me the Velvet Teddy Bear. You know what I'm saying? And, listen, Ryan, another great show, my man. Congratulations on all. Hey, dude, the draft was sick. But like you said, I saw one of your tweets. You're like, they must have told this kid he was going number 1 3 weeks ago. Dude, they had no reaction.
Bro, what is Trayvon Walker doing, bro? Because it was like, you're the first pick. Oh, I love you, Mom. Appreciate you.
Hey,
bro, you already know.
Normally, it's like, let's go.
First pick to me, listen, I understand that you want to be the first pick in the pageantry and all, but first pick to me goes in. You know what I mean? Like, generational wealth. Set for life if I do the right things. I'm getting up and partying based on that. Boom. Like, I don't even know if I'm gonna be good, but I know I got 25 guaranteed.
Yes.
So listen, I'll tell you what I'm gonna be excited about, bro. I'm excited to see you this week.
I could not believe that. I was like, wow, this dude, I was like, wow, this dude is tripping. But it is, sometimes you gotta be cool, right? But sometimes you can be a little too cool for the situation. Like, you gotta go up there, dog. Like,
bro, I ain't trying to be that cool. Man. I ain't trying to be that cool, DC.
Not that cool.
Not that cool. I'm gonna be sweating after I finish jumping up and down and celebrate, sweating
You're gonna
and
sweat
crying.
this weekend. Hey, you're gonna sweat this weekend in Phoenix. It's hot. If you thought you were hot in Vegas, it's hotter in Phoenix. It's gonna be like 110 all week. It's gonna
DC.
be terrible.
DC, that's why I trained every year. I'm gonna tell you what's gonna be hot. Them gloves and the octagon gonna be hot, and that's all that matters to me, bro. That is,
It's gonna
guess
be
what?
fun.
This gonna be so hype. We bringing the entire Clark clan
Oh,
to
wow.
the fight.
You
Yeah,
bring your
we-
mama
we-
too?
Listen,
you bring your mama
everybody.
too?
It's Mother's Day, dog. We coming in deep to that thing.
It's
So
gonna be fun.
listen, hey, bro, can't wait to see you. 274 is going to be exciting. I'm RC. That's DC. Thank you guys for supporting us, sticking with us. Man, subscribe, like, do whatever you got to do because we want to keep bringing y'all this heat. Y'all be good.